Some people walk into your life quietly like shadows, but their presence changes everything. When Alina Cruz was hired to care for the troubled son of a tech mogul, she thought it was just another job. But what no one knew was that Alina carried a secret that could destroy the family she was now serving or save it. Alina Cruz wasn't born to be seen. She was born to disappear. She never knew her father. Her mother, an immigrant housekeeper who scrubbed the silver floors of the Marston estate, died of pneumonia in a cold hospital room, her hands still cracked from bleach. Alina was 17 and alone. No college fund, no relatives, no future. But she had something else, a promise. "I'll finish what you started, Mama," she whispered at her mother's grave, clutching the only photo they had together, a blurry snapshot outside the mansion gates. That's how she returned. Not as a daughter of the help, but as a quiet shadow who would one day walk the very halls her mother used to clean. 5 years later, Alina stood before the same towering gates of the Marston estate. Only this time, she wasn't here to scrub floors. She was here to take care of Lucas Marston, the brilliant but emotionally broken son of billionaire venture capitalist and media titan Richard Marston. The offer came out of nowhere. A mysterious letter, a generous salary, no experience needed, just patience, discretion, and loyalty. And an NDA. Alina signed it without blinking. She didn't come for the money. She came for the truth. The estate hadn't changed much. Still cold, still silent. The staff still avoided eye contact, whispering about the boy upstairs. Lucas had returned from boarding school under troubled circumstances. No one really knew what happened, only that he came back angry, violent, and mute. He hadn't spoken in 2 years. "Your job isn't to fix him," said Mr. Alden, the estate manager. "It's to keep him stable until the doctors return. No sudden movements, no questions, no overstepping." Alina nodded, but her eyes lingered on the massive staircase leading to the east wing. The wing her mother was forbidden to clean. The place her mother had always whispered about. The place Alina believed held the answers to everything. She was escorted to her room. Not the staff quarters, but a private suite on the second floor, directly across from Lucas's. Too luxurious, too close, too deliberate. It wasn't a job. It was a setup. It was raining the first time she saw him. Alina was walking toward the kitchen when she spotted him. Lucas Marston, age 21, sitting barefoot in the middle of the library, surrounded by torn pages of philosophy books. Tall, sharp, hauntingly pale. His eyes locked onto hers like a warning. Cold, unreadable. "I'm Alina," she said softly. "I'm just here to help." He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared at her until she walked away. But the next morning, a note appeared under her door. "I don't need a babysitter. I need silence. Leave. She didn't single quotes. Tea. Instead. She made him tea. He didn't drink it, but he didn't throw it away either. Days passed in strange silence. Alina learned to move without sound, to leave books by his door, to turn off lights before he entered a room. She cleaned only what he didn't touch. She never asked questions, but she watched. Lucas was not insane. He was brilliant, too brilliant. For his own good, he read like he was starving. He played the piano like it was the only language left. At night, she heard him whispering to someone, but he lived alone. One night, she found him in the greenhouse, half asleep, soaked in rain, clutching an old photo. Her mother was in it. Alina's heart stopped. She recognized the woman. Her mother. In the photo, she stood beside a young boy, Lucas. But that wasn't what caught her attention. It was the necklace around her mother's neck. The same necklace Alina wore. That photo shouldn't exist. No one ever photographed the staff. Her mother never spoke of a child, especially not one connected to the Marstons. "Where did you get this?" she asked gently. Lucas looked up, eyes hollow. "She was the only one who told me the truth," he whispered, then turned away. That night, Alina couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, watching the rain drown the estate. The pieces didn't fit, not yet, but she could feel it. Something had been buried at Marston Estate. Something about her mother, something about Lucas, and whatever it was about to rise again. They say, the past is buried for a reason. But what if it was never buried at all? What if it was just waiting for someone brave enough to dig? Alina didn't sleep after finding the photo. Her mother's face haunted her, the quiet smile, the same necklace she wore every day, The way she stood protectively behind the boy in the picture, behind Lucas. He had said just 7 words. She was the only one who told me the truth. What truth? By morning she had made a decision. She wouldn't run. She wouldn't be afraid of what she might uncover. She would stay, because something about this house, this family, and this broken boy felt too important to walk away from. Breakfast was silent as usual. Alina left a plate on the hallway table outside Lucas's room and began tending the greenhouse. It had become her sanctuary, the only place where memories didn't feel like ghosts. The orchids her mother once nurtured had returned in bloom, but even beauty held weight here. A forgotten journal tucked beneath a stone bench caught her eye. Leather-bound, worn. She opened it. Lucas's handwriting, page after page of thoughts that seemed like they were never meant to be read. Silence isn't peace, it's prison. She told me I wasn't broken, just unheard. They think therapy will fix me, but they won't let me say what really happened. Alina felt a chill trace her spine. Someone had silenced him. Someone in this house. Someone with power. That afternoon, while collecting laundry from the East Wing, she noticed a door, one she had never seen before. Old metal, almost hidden behind a standing mirror. She pushed gently. Locked. As she turned away, footsteps echoed behind her, heavy, slow, watching. She spun around. Lucas stood at the other end of the hall, half in shadow, arms folded. "You're not supposed to be here," he said quietly. Alina didn't flinch. "Neither are you." A moment passed between them, thick with tension but not anger. Something else. Recognition. "I used to live in that room," he said, pointing to the locked door. "Before everything changed." "Why did you leave it?" He didn't answer. "Right away, when she left, it didn't feel like mine anymore." "You mean your mother?" He shook his head slowly. "Yours." The silence between them cracked like glass. That evening, Alina walked through the halls like a ghost, her mind tangled in questions. Had her mother been more than just a housekeeper here? Why did Lucas speak of her with such certainty, such sorrow? What had she done to earn that kind of loyalty from a child who now couldn't trust anyone? In the study, she found an old filing cabinet, locked, but next to it, a box of donation letters. One name kept appearing: Cruz Foundation. But Mother had never mentioned a foundation. They had barely had enough to survive. A distant sound caught her attention: music. Soft, aching, familiar. The piano. Lucas. She followed it, quietly, finding him once again alone in the dim room, head bowed, fingers drifting over the keys like he was trying to remember something long forgotten. "I remember this song," she said, gently, stepping in. He didn't stop playing. "She sang it to me, said it was from her village. She used to hum it when she was folding laundry," Alina whispered. Lucas's hands froze. He turned to her. "You remember?" Alina nodded, eyes stinging. "I'm her daughter." There was no shock in his face, just relief. "I know." That changed everything. From that moment, the walls between them, once built from silence and sorrow, began to fall, brick by brick. Lucas opened up, slowly. He told her about the night he was sent away, about the fights between his father and a woman named Rosa Cruz, about secrets whispered behind closed doors, about how, after her disappearance, nothing made sense anymore. "She told me I wasn't crazy," he said one night, "that what I saw, what I remembered, was real." "What did you see?" Alina asked. He looked away. "A man in the East Wing, arguing with her. Then she was gone." And just like that, the puzzle shifted. Alina wasn't just a housekeeper's daughter. She was part of a mystery wrapped in wealth and silence. One night, as thunder rolled across the estate and lightning lit up the hallways, Alina slipped a key from the old groundskeeper's drawer, one labeled simply EW. She waited until the house fell asleep, then stepped quietly into the East Wing. The locked door. The key clicked. Inside, dust covered every surface. Furniture still sat exactly as it had years ago. Toys, a small bed, books stacked high, and photos turned face down. She turned one over. Her mother, holding a baby. And beside her, a man with the same cold blue eyes as Lucas. Alina stepped back, breath caught. Could it be? Had her mother been more than a maid? As she turned to leave, the floor creaked behind her. Lucas, he stood in the doorway, a single candle in his hand. "You found it," he said. "I didn't know she was here. Like this." Lucas stepped inside and picked up the photo. "I did." A long pause. "She was the only one who made this place feel like a home." "You loved her," Alina said softly. He nodded. She loved me. They sat in silence on the floor, surrounded by dust and memories. Neither spoke, but everything had changed. The truth had begun to surface and it was bringing them closer, not just to each other, but to the answers neither had dared to hope. For as the candle flickered between them, Alina realized something else. Maybe she wasn't hired by accident. Maybe someone knew she would return, and maybe, just maybe, the most dangerous secret wasn't what her mother hid, but why she was silenced. Some houses whisper, but this one remembered. Every hallway, every echo of laughter, every tear that had fallen onto its marble floors. It remembered everything. And the moment Alina opened that forgotten room, something awakened. It was no longer just about the past. It was about the truth, waiting to be unearthed, the cost of knowing it. In the morning, the sunlight seemed different, sharper, like it was slicing through the lies, daring them to come out of hiding. Alina stood in the greenhouse, holding the photo. Her mother, the baby, the man with Lucas's eyes. Was he her father? No, that couldn't be. Or could it? Before she could gather her thoughts, Lucas stepped outside, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. He stopped in front of her, not speaking right away. Then, softly, "I remember the day that photo was taken. I was maybe 4. Your mother gave me that little blue bear. I still have it, somewhere." Elena's breath caught. "You remember that much? Some things never leave you," he said, "especially the things people try hardest to erase." They sat together on the garden bench. Neither of them spoke for a while. The silence wasn't uncomfortably, it was filled with questions they weren't quite ready to ask. But fate didn't wait. That afternoon, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, a note typed on thin, almost translucent paper. "If you want answers, dig deeper. Start with the trust. Look at the names." Alina stared at it. Trust. She remembered the files in the study, the cruise foundation, the donation letters, her mother's name on a Furosa cruise, her full name. She went back inside, heart pounding, and opened the drawer again. Beneath the letters was a slim binder labeled Cruise Family Holdings. It was dusty, unassuming, but inside, a list of names. One in particular stopped her cold. Lucas, a Kingston-Cruise. Her hands trembled. Lucas had her mother's last name. Her knees felt weak. She sank to the floor, rereading it over and over. Not Kingston. Kingston Cruise. She wasn't just hired to care for him. She was his family. He wasn't just a child her mother had loved. He was her brother. The next morning, Alina stood at the kitchen table staring at Lucas, unsure how to say it, but she didn't have to. He already knew. "I saw the file," he said quietly, "last year, after they sent me away. That's when I stopped talking." Elena's voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked away. "Because you deserved to be free, not stuck in this house like the rest of us." Tears welled in her eyes. "I came back because something pulled me here. I thought I was just trying to understand her, but I was trying to find you." Lucas took a shaky breath. "They hid it, lied, said she was just help, that she tried to take something that wasn't hers. But this house, that trust fund, half of it is hers, which means half of it is ours." And now it all made sense. The locked room, the vanished records, the reason Rosa had been erased from every photo, every document, because the truth was dangerous, because love had crossed a line. Her mother hadn't been just a housekeeper. She had been the partner of the estate's heir, the mother of his child, and someone had wanted her erased. That night, Alina couldn't sleep. She walked the halls alone, guided by a quiet fire building inside her. She passed the study, the music room, the staircase where her mother used to hum lullabies as she swept. She paused by a door. Margot's old office. It was unlocked. Inside, the room was untouched. Papers still stacked neatly, expensive pens lined up like soldiers. But something felt off. A drawer slightly open, a light blinking behind a cabinet. She stepped closer. A security hard drive, the kind that recorded every room, every day. She plugged it into the nearby monitor, and that's when she saw it. A video dated 8 years back, a rainy night. Rosa standing in the hallway, facing a man in a dark coat, arguing, crying, pleading, and then cut. The footage stopped. Alina hit play again. Same result. The rest was gone. Erased. She knew that man wasn't Lucas's father. She had seen him before in portraits lining the West Wing. A cousin, a board member, someone with power to protect the Kingston name, no matter the cost. The next day, Alina confronted the family lawyer. "You lied," she said, placing the binder on the desk, "about who my mother was, about who Lucas is, about everything." The man's hands shook slightly as he adjusted his glasses. "You weren't supposed to know. None of this was meant for you. That doesn't make it yours, Alina," he began, but she didn't let him finish. "I want everything my mother built for us. I want her name back, and I want Lucas to know he's not alone." He leaned forward, face cold. "Do you have any idea what you're stepping into? These people don't just lie. They rewrite reality." "Then it's time someone rewrote it back," she replied. When she returned to the estate, Lucas was waiting by the grand piano. "I'm scared," he admitted. "So am I," she whispered, "but we've lived in the shadows long enough." Together, they sat at the piano and played the melody their mother used to hum. This time it didn't sound like sadness, it sounded like a beginning. The storm didn't come with thunder. It arrived in silence. Papers were filed, quiet calls made, lawyers whispered across long tables in rooms with no windows. By the time Alina and Lucas realized how deep it went, the floor beneath them was already shifting. Everything they thought they had uncovered, it was just the surface. What lay beneath was older, colder, and crafted to keep people like them exactly where they weren't seen. That morning, the letter came by private courier, thick paper, embossed seal, Kingston Legal Division. Alina opened it slowly, her breath hitched. They were being evicted from the estate their mother once called home. Lucas stood across the table, reading over her shoulder. "They're pushing us out," he said, not surprised, just resigned. Alina shook her head. "We still have rights." Lucas looked down. "You'd think they care about rights, about truth." She stood taller. "Then we'll make them." But it wasn't just a legal battle now. It was personal. The very man they'd seen in the footage, the one who had argued with Rosa before the camera cut, was now listed as the acting head of the Kingston Family Trust. Edward Kingston. He wasn't a cousin. He was the puppeteer. Every move since Rosa's death, every missing document, every lawyer silenced. Edward. And now, he was trying to erase her children too. Alina drove to the city the next day, binder in hand, ready to face the Kingston Foundation's board directly. She wore a simple black blazer, her mother's. Every step up the marble stairs felt like a quiet revolution. Inside the boardroom, 12 people, all polished, all prepared to dismiss her in under 5 minutes, until she placed the photo on the table. Her mother, Lucas, the man who once loved Rosa, who had died mysteriously just after the estate was passed into Edward's hands. Alina looked around the room. No one talks about her, but she lived here. She gave her life to this family. She raised him. She nodded toward Lucas, while the rest of you forgot he existed. The oldest board member, woman with gray eyes and too much silence in her face, spoke. "She was good," she said quietly. "Your mother, kind, brilliant with numbers." The only person who ever dared question Edward. Alina turned. "Why didn't anyone protect her?" The woman looked down. "Because we were cowards." It wasn't an answer, but it was something. Later that evening, Alina returned to the estate to find Lucas in the garden, digging, not aimlessly, with purpose. "You're gardening?" she asked, surprised. "No," he said, voice firm. "I'm looking for the truth." She walked closer. Beneath the soil, half covered in roots, was an old wooden box. They opened it together. Inside, Rosa's journal, wrapped in cloth, still faintly scented with lavender. Lucas held it like a treasure. "I used to see her write in this, late at night. She'd hide it when someone came." The pages were filled with careful handwriting, notes about the estate, the children she helped raise, the love she never spoke aloud. And then they found the final entry. "If you are reading this, I hope the house has not stolen your voice the way it tried to steal mine. Love is not a crime, but truth, that will cost you. Protect Lucas, your name, and do not be afraid to fight with kindness. They won't expect that." Alina closed the book slowly. The very next morning, she filed a lawsuit, not for the money, not for the property, but for recognition for Rosa Cruz to be listed as co-founder of the Cruz Kingston Trust, and for Lucas to be acknowledged as heir. Wasn't about vengeance, it was about restoring history. But Edward wasn't done. A few days later, Lucas received a summons, not to court, but to a private disciplinary hearing arranged by Edward through the foundation's internal board. It was unofficial, unethical, but it was meant to intimidate. Elena told him not to go. Lucas said one thing, "I've hidden long enough." He walked into that room with his head high. Elena waited outside, heart pounding. An hour later he walked back out, silent, shaking. "Elena," he whispered. He had a recording. "Mom," pleading, asking him not to take me away after the accident. "What accident?" she asked, voice rising. "The one they staged to make it look like she was unstable. That's how they declared her unfit. That's how they got custody. He used it all." Elena clenched her fists. "We'll expose it." But Lucas looked broken. He said, "If we keep fighting, he'll sue for slander. He'll take what little we have left. I don't care about the money. But I'm tired, Elena." She stepped closer, "Then lean on me. That's what family is." Later that night, as the wind picked up outside and thunder finally arrived after weeks of stillness, Elena sat with the journal, rereading the last lines. "Do not be afraid to fight with kindness." Maybe Rosa was right. Maybe fire didn't have to be loud. So the next day Elena did something no one expected. She went live, social media, full name, full story. She read from the journal. She shared the photo. She told the world who Rosa Cruz really was, a woman who loved deeply, gave quietly, and was buried in silence. The video went viral in hours. Thousands of comments, reporters, advocates, even some former staff who remembered Rosa and came forward. The foundation issued a formal statement by evening. "We are reviewing the new evidence with respect." Edward Kingston, however, remained silent. But his silence didn't protect him anymore, because the world was watching. And Elena, she had just begun to speak. The rain didn't stop for 3 days. It washed over the Kingston estate like a quiet reckoning, soaking the roses, bleeding color from the old stone fountains, and curling the corners of the torn eviction notice that still lay forgotten on the garden bench. Inside the house, everything had changed. It wasn't louder. It wasn't chaotic. It was quieter, too quiet. Elena sat in her mother's old room, the journal open across her lap. Lucas was upstairs, barely speaking. The video had exploded online. Rosa Cruz's name was now known by millions. People were sharing photos. Former employees came forward with testimonies. Even anonymous letters arrived, each a thread to a larger truth they hadn't fully uncovered yet. But what should have felt like victory, DIDN single quotes, because Edward Kingston had not responded, not a word, not an interview, not even a legal notice. And that silence meant something more dangerous than noise. Then came the knock at the door. It was a soft, patient knock, the kind that didn't need to be repeated because whoever stood there already knew they would be let in. Elena opened it. A woman stood on the steps, mid-50s, tall, poised, wearing a navy trench coat and holding a single file folder in her hand. "Elena Cruz." "Yes, I worked for the Kingston Financial Division until last year. My name is Marianne." Elena didn't say anything, but the woman held up the folder like an offering. "This belongs to you. I couldn't speak before. I was under contract, but I saw your video. I saw Rosa once, crying in the staff lounge, holding a letter. I didn't understand it then. Now I do." She handed the folder to Elena. "I've already resigned. I'm safe, but you're not. If Edward sees what's in there, he'll come for you. Be ready." Then she turned and walked away. No explanation. No goodbye, just a folder. Inside were 5 documents, all stamped, all notarized. One was a handwritten agreement between Rosa Cruz and Arthur Kingston, the patriarch of the Kingston Empire, and Edward's father. A single line stood out. "In the event of Arthur Kingston's passing, the Cruz family will receive 10% of the trust equity for Rosa's decades of undisclosed contributions." Lucas nearly dropped the paper. "This is real." He promised her part of the foundation, and Edward buried it. Elena stared at the ink, her hands trembling. This is what Mum was hiding. This is why they erased her. They had proof now. Not just stories, not just memories. Proof. They sent copies to their lawyer that night. The next morning, Elena received an invitation, delivered by Edward's assistant, to meet at the Kingston Tower. Penthouse. No lawyers. No press. Just her and Edward. Lucas warned her not to go. She didn't listen. The elevator, to the 82nd floor, opened into silence and white marble. Edward Kingston stood by a massive glass window, the skyline at his back. He looked younger than she remembered, clean-shaven, suit perfect, not a hair out of place. "Elena Cruz." he said, smiling faintly. Your mother had the same fire. She said nothing. He gestured toward the chairs. Sit. She didn't move. You buried her memory, lied about her, and now you want to talk. He folded his hands. You're smart. I respect that, but you've gone far enough. Elena's voice didn't waver. You destroyed her, he sighed. She made a mistake falling in love with Arthur, and Arthur made a bigger one choosing her over this family. I protected what was mine. She was never yours to erase. Edward walked toward her, calm, measured. Let me offer you something. Drop the case, end the public crusade, and I'll reinstate the Cruz name into the Kingston Family Trust. You'll have money, a legacy, a clean reputation, but no more noise. Alina narrowed her eyes. And Lucas? He walks away, quietly. No claim, no deal. Edward's smile faded. That was a mistake, he said softly. No, Elena replied. Erasing her was your mistake. Speaking her name is mine to make. She turned and walked away. That night, someone tried to break into the estate. They didn't steal anything, but Rosa's journal was moved. Nothing was taken, except the last page. Lucas was the one who noticed it missing. Elena, furious and shaken, checked the security system logs. The camera outside the back door had gone offline for exactly 17 minutes. They weren't being intimidated anymore. They were being watched, but they didn't run. Instead, Alina went back online. She posted again. She told the world everything. Meeting, the offer, the breakdash in dot. And for the first time, people weren't just listening. They were responding. Attorneys volunteered. Foundations offered support. Even a group of former Kingston Scholarship recipients created a petition to formally demand Rosa's name be restored. But the most unexpected message came from someone else entirely. A short email. No name. Just check the basement of the East Wing. There's a room behind the furnace. She kept a second journal. That night, Alina and Lucas crept into the dark corridors of the East Wing unused, locked away since Arthur's death. Dust choked the halls. Furniture under white sheets looked like ghosts frozen in time. Behind the furnace, they found a rusted panel. Lucas pried it open. Inside, a wooden box, and within it, a second journal, this one older, with pages warped by time. They opened it together under the flicker of a single hallway bulb. The first entry read, "They say love is for the lucky, but maybe love is for the brave. And if no one remembers me, maybe my children will, and that will be enough." Alina closed her eyes, her voice steady as she whispered, "We remember you, Mum. And now, the whole world will to dot." The wind howled through the trees the night before the hearing, as if the world itself was bracing for a storm. The Kingston estate, once a symbol of control and legacy, now stood like a hollow monument, its walls echoing with stories it could no longer bury. Alina sat at the edge of her bed, Rosa's second journal in her hands. The final entry was still fresh in her mind. If truth is dangerous, it's only because lies have ruled for too long. Lucas entered, his face pale from hours of sorting legal documents and prepping evidence. But he carried something new in his hands, a photograph. "Elena," he said softly, "you need to see this." She took the photo. It was grainy and faded, but unmistakable. Rosa, holding a newborn, and standing beside her, a man with sharp eyes, strong shoulders, and a wedding ring. Alina blinked. "That's Arthur Kingston." Lucas nodded. "Dated the same year you were born." The truth landed like thunder. "I'm not just Rosa's daughter," she whispered. "I'm a Kingston. And that," Lucas said, "changes everything." At court the next morning, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Reporters packed the benches. Cameras waited outside. But inside, there was only one voice that mattered. Alina's single quote says, she stood before the judge not just to clear Rosa's name, but to reveal a secret that had remained hidden for decades. "I was raised by a woman who spent her life working in silence," she began. "She cleaned floors, folded linens, and carried a heartbreak she never spoke aloud. But she wasn't just a maid. She was a partner, a confidant, a forgotten piece of a powerful man's life." She paused. "My mother, Rosa Cruz, was in a private relationship with Arthur Kingston for over 15 years. He promised her part of the trust, promised her recognition. Instead, after his death, she was erased, buried beneath scandal and silence. And her voice broke slightly, but she steadied it, and the living proof of that truth." Gasps rippled through the room. Edward Kingston stood at the defendant's table. jaw clenched, fingers white around his pen. For the first time, he didn't look powerful. He looked cornered. Alina handed over the documents, the letters, the agreements, the second journal, and then, the photograph. My mother may have died with her story untold, but she left behind a voice, mine. The judge called a recess. Outside, Alina and Lucas stood beneath a grey sky, their breath fogging in the air. You think it'll be enough? Lucas asked. It has to be, she replied. If not for us, then for her. When court resumed, the judge delivered a preliminary ruling, a full investigation into the Kingston estate's financial records, an emergency injunction on Edward's control of the trust, and the immediate recognition of Rosa Cruz's long-term contribution. But what stunned the room most came at the end. Elena Cruz will be granted provisional standing as an heir to Arthur Kingston pending DNA confirmation. Edward erupted. This is insanity. She's a liar. She was nothing. The judge pounded the gavel. You will not speak again without permission, Mr. Kingston. And just like that, the walls of legacy cracked. Later that night, Alina and Lucas returned to the estate. The wind had calmed. The roses, battered by the storm, still stood in the garden, under the stars. They held a quiet ceremony for Rosa. No candles, no music, just her journal, placed gently in the soil, beneath the rosebush she'd planted years ago. She gave so much, Alina whispered. She gave you, Lucas replied. They stayed there until dawn broke soft gold, spilling across the garden, light reclaiming shadows. In the weeks that followed, everything moved fast. The media ran Rosa's story. People sent letters from around the world, stories of their own forgotten mothers, lost legacies, stolen identities. Alina became more than a headline. She became a voice for the silenced. The trust began a full audit. Edward vanished from public life, and on a quiet Thursday morning, Alina received a call from the legal office. DNA confirmed. You're his daughter. She didn't cry. She smiled, steady. The truth had found its way through. 1 month later, she stood on the steps of Kingston Tower, not to claim power, but to start something new. The Rosa Foundation launched that day, a home for women in service professions to pursue education, legal aid, and artistic dreams. Lucas joined her on stage. I used to think some stories were too painful to tell, he said, but maybe the hardest ones are the most important. Maybe the people who suffer the most are the ones who change the world. And Alina, standing beneath the banner with her mother's name, looked out at the crowd and spoke one final truth. She was more than a maid. She was more than a secret. She was a mother, and now she's a legacy. Cheers rose, and somewhere, in the breeze that rustled the roses, it felt like Rosa was finally free.